Once I graduated from college, I was doing an internship at a financial services firm, just kind of doing, and one of those things was marketing. I helped their marketing team. That's the fun thing about marketing, right? Is it takes you in a lot of different paths and exposes you to so many different types of businesses. One of the best things you can do for your career and for the company that you work for is to get close with sales, right? To understand how they tick.
I've been seeing a lot more B2B companies acting like B2C companies. You're a business to consumer brand, you're a Nike, you're an Apple. You need to evoke that emotion in your campaigns. You need to have that loyalty to your brand. And that's the ultimate goal. And I think the B2B companies now, we want that.
You know, I was at a conference last week and stopped over by the Salesforce booth, and it was all about AI. And they had, a B2B specific AI journey that they took people on. That was really pretty interesting.
You look at what Facebook has had to do with Instagram in terms of they only have so much space to show ads. So they have to make sure that they're showing you the most hyper relevant ads possible. I want to welcome you all to today's episode of the Rev Talks podcast. Today, our special guest is John Carlson, marketing leader with over 15 years experience in B2B SaaS. He currently heads product marketing at OpenSignal, and prior to that, he was the VP of marketing at Bevy. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lewis. Good to be here.
For listeners that are tuning in new, Rev Talks podcast is a place for marketers and sales leaders to come and kind of chat about what makes them successful throughout their careers. Just chatting about what's going on in the market right now, what's working, what's not. And so, one of the first areas that I always like to go into is just to kind of hear, a little bit about what led you to where you are right now in your career. Some of the pivotal moments, and, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing at OpenSignal, I think that would be really interesting as well.
For sure. I'll start with, I guess, how I got here, which has been a bit of a long and winding road. As I found that it has been for a lot of marketers. Some people decide that they want to go into marketing immediately, but I found that a lot of us didn't, right? And kind of found our way here. I'd count myself amongst, that camp. I think I kind of found marketing out once I graduated from college. I was doing an internship at a financial services firm, just kind of doing a lot of little things for them. And one of those things was marketing. I helped their marketing team, and I was like, this is about communication, right? This is about creativity, right? There's analytics here too. This is interesting blend that I didn't even really know was out there, or at least existed in this format, right? You think of marketing, you think about, at least, back in 2008, 2009, you thought about billboards, right? And TV commercials. You didn't really think about this, what I would consider a more thoughtful, more holistic suite of capabilities that did blend that creative and analytical side that I was really inclined to pursue. I think that's the fun thing about marketing, right? Is it takes you in a lot of different along a lot of different paths, right? And exposes you to so many different types of businesses and types of stories and types of products. But there are certain universal elements of it that you can apply, across all of them. So yeah, I think I went way beyond what you asked, but that's what's going on in my world.
No, that's quite the journey. And there's a lot there to unpack. I was trying to make mental notes of some of the things that you had said. One of which I feel like is one of those kind of cornerstone elements of every marketer is when you start to figure out that process of how marketing works with sales, and how, now you're seeing a lot more of sales and marketing as kind of one team, especially if you're looking at an inside marketing team who's really acting as an extension of marketing. But you're also seeing marketing own so much more of the pie right now. And so therefore, logically, sales is one of those components that, they're generally more or less on the hook for. So I think that's, knowing that was something that you kind of picked up earlier in your career than most, or before it was in vogue. I think that must have done a lot to kind of, help that understanding of it.
100%. I think any marketing leader, any marketer period, one of the best things you can do for your career and for the company that you work for is to get close with sales, right? To understand how they tick. It's a cliche, but it is true. So often marketing and sales are just always at each other's throats. right? They're always button heads. One is thinking long term, one is thinking short term. You can't get aligned. It gets combative, and then you're just working with this highly inefficient funnel, right? Like, no wonder so many companies fail, right? If marketing and sales aren't on the same page, if they aren't connected. So yeah, I mean, I think one of the most valuable things you can do is sit down with your sales leaders, sit down with your reps, understand what they go through on a daily basis, right? It's a very, very exposed position in the organization. So is marketing, right? Everybody sees what you do. But sellers are putting themselves out there every single day, often hundreds of times a day. If you're a BDR, you're just dialing and getting rejected all day. So it's a tough place to be, but it's also, one of the best sources of knowledge for a marketer is just talking to sales. What are you encountering in the market, right? What are the pain points that your prospects are communicating back to you? Can we address them, right? Can our company address those pain points? Can marketing help you, right? Are these the right types of people to talk to? Can we help you get in front of more qualified audiences? And if so, like, what's the right messaging to put in front of them, right? If you start to build up that partnership, all of this sounds fairly fundamental, right? But like, I've just seen so many instances where this type of conversation does not take place. So like, if you can just instigate those conversations and make them a regular part of your routine, you're going to be way more successful, and the whole company will be too, right? Because all of a sudden, instead of having these gears that are spinning but aren't connecting, right? You just connect the machine, and everything is velocity is going to increase, and hopefully value is going to increase as well.
It's so true. Just getting everyone on the same page too, making sure that, you don't have a sales team that is kind of speaking a different language compared to what marketing's doing. And, that friction, that oil and water, like, that is definitely a real thing. And I think that, any smart organization is going to try and nip that at the bud and get ahead of it. But it's so easy to not have the time, or to just, everyone's moving quick and they're kind of doing their own things. They're in their own swim lanes. So it is one of those things that could easily be overlooked.
Yep.
I think another thing about that role in particular, marketing in general, but sales as well, is how, all these new AI tools, whether they're helping you write emails, helping you do real-time personalization, helping you figure out what the best leads are to prosecute next, you name it. I mean, you've seen how many of these tools are out there. Have you been seeing anything interesting with AI in your space, and how you've been applying it to kind of your function, or just in general?
Is AI, is that trendy these days?
A little bit.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's everywhere. And you and I have talked about this, how it's always hard to tell what's AI, what's not AI, what's vaporware, right? You have to say it. You got to use the term these days if you want to be relevant. But I think that's half the battle for me, right? Is understanding what's real and what's not. As a marketer, I think AI has a lot of great practical applications, but you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, and you also don't want to overpromise what AI can deliver for a marketing team. I think it's really easy to say, oh, we can implement new list building methods or new content creation processes really quickly by implementing AI. And definitely you can do those things, right? But like, you can't take the human element out of it. And I do still think we're at like very early days in terms of what these tools can actually, uncovering what these tools can actually do for us. A lot of conversations I have with marketers about AI are about the theoretical, right? What could it do? I've actually had very few conversations with marketers who are like truly putting the rubber to the road with AI and making drastic changes to their processes. I just don't think most marketers are there yet. Some are, right? Some are on the cutting edge, but I don't think we've crossed that chasm, so to speak. In terms of baking AI into everyday use. That said, I'm seeing some interesting things, right? I think the most, I'll call it, obvious application to me, and something that I've even dabbled with myself is just helping with content ideation. Right. I think, especially in B2B, having good, relevant, consistent, high quality content is vitally important, right? In terms of audience creation and engagement and ultimately lead gen, building good thought leadership. And any content marketer will tell you that process takes time, right? And it still takes time, but you can use AI to help instigate new ideas, inspire new ideas, help you draft outlines, right? Help you do research faster, right? It's not eliminating any of the steps. It's just making them more efficient, right? It's greasing the skids, making them move faster. So I've used in that capacity. I've seen some content marketers do that quite well. I'm seeing some interesting things on the horizon. I was at a conference last week and stopped over by the Salesforce booth, and it was all about AI. And they had, a B2B specific AI journey that they took people on. That was really pretty interesting. And it was all about implementing personalization at scale, right? Which is an idea that is not new, right? It's one that I've been, and I'm sure many other marketers have been trying to achieve probably since I started in marketing, right? How do I create campaigns across my audience base in a way that speaks to every person on an individual level, in a way that resonates with an individual, as opposed to, more generalized messaging. Super, super, super hard to achieve, right? And usually you just have to figure out what's the best version of that broad message, and how well do I know my audience so that I can create one message that resonates with as many people as possible. What I started to see, at least in this demonstration, was an evolution beyond that, right? Where you could start at the data ingestion point, right? Where you're pulling in data from many disparate sources about different individuals, pulling all of that data together into a unified view of your audience, who they are, where they come from, what they care about. And then taking that sort of 360 profile of each of your customers and turning that into a personalized lead flow, right? So using AI to build out custom emails, right? Really efficiently, building out personalized landing pages based on who clicks on those emails, and do nothing that hasn't been attempted before, but I've never seen it this clean. I've never seen it this efficient. So I think that, I haven't used it in that capacity yet, but that to me seems potentially groundbreaking, because if as marketers, we can start to have a high degree of confidence that this type of personalized communication at scale is going to work, that makes our job so much easier. I think what's been hard for me in the past is we've had the ability to build landing pages that can modulate based on, the IP address of the visitor, right? And change the messaging based on where the person is coming from. But that's such an unreliable way to do that type of personalization. It's almost more harm. The risk outweighs the reward, right? If that messaging is off, right, and it's giving me information, that page is giving me information about myself that is wrong, that's such a bad user experience, right? So I, as a marketer, have been hesitant to implement that type of personalized automation because I'm scared that it doesn't work. I think if we can start to have confidence that it will work on a consistent basis, and it's really easy to implement too, all right, the lift isn't as great and not as technical, then I think that kind of changes the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There has to be that level of reliability for you to count on it as a marketer, because there is a lot to lose. If you present something that's made for a different industry, you've just lost your prospect. They are going to be tuning out, and you've probably done a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's probably happened to you too, but I've had those instances where, whatever salesperson is reaching out to me thinks they're providing me with a highly personalized experience, and the information is wrong, right? It's an old company or the wrong company, or my name is wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's just bad data hygiene. I have a lot of sympathy for those instances, probably more than most.
Yeah, it happens.
Who hasn't been there? But if we could take that risk out of the equation, and I'm not saying that, this instance that I saw at a conference is the cure-all, right? But it looked like the beginning of that to me.
Yeah, I think,
and that would reduce a lot of stress, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of that comes down to just super high quality content that's highly relevant. And it's the same thing of what you look at what Facebook has had to do with Instagram in terms of like they only have so much space to show ads. They can't show you an ad every other photo or every other reel. So they have to make sure that they're showing you the most hyper relevant, high quality ads possible.
Yeah.
And I think they've done that to a certain degree based on all of their AI that they're running on the back end to stay on topic. They know a lot about their users, and they know what their users have a propensity to click on and what their interests are based on that whole graph that they're putting together. And they've used that to put together high quality advertising for them that is actually relevant. And it might be something that they're interested in, and they're happy to click on and engage with that ad and maybe buy said product. And I think that needs to happen at a B2B level with the quality of content that is being put out, where it's going. You have to meet buyers where they are. That's the trend. And it's like, if you can do that with the right content, and it is particularly helpful. And maybe you have some brand awareness in the back end to help as well. Like that can only help you. But
well, that's an interesting topic, right? When I think about the trends that I'm seeing in marketing, I think probably for like the majority of your and my careers, we've been in this trend of marketing. It must maniacally show value, right? We have to tie every activity we can to the revenue output of that activity. And if it can't directly be tied back to it, we cut it, right? Because it wasn't valuable, right? That was the trend. Because as soon as we could, if you think about like the history of marketing, right? For the longest time, it was like this fluffy amorphous thing, right? And you could just
Mad Men era, right? Yeah. That's it, right there. We feel this is going to be the best campaign for you. How does it make you feel? And that's it. You're going to roll with it,
right? Which seems kind of nice, but we haven't had that luxury, right? Because as soon as we started to be able to measure even like a very basic level the output of marketing activity, that's all any CEO started to care about. Right. And for good reason, right? Like, their marketing is often seen as a cost center, right? We do spend money. And, leadership wants to know where that money is going, right? And if they can't see it, they don't believe it in many cases. Not all cases, but many cases. So I think that you and I have been dealing with that ecosystem for a long time, as have, all of the marketers, who are working alongside of us. I think it's, to some degree, that's been really healthy, because it makes us think about, what's the value of what we're doing, what's the highest impact activity that we can be executing at any given point in time, and how do we connect to the sales process and to sellers, and I think having our goals aligned with their goals is good, is ultimately healthy, but also limiting, right? Because I think many marketers would also agree that we know that there's more than just that linear thread of, we did something, we created an opportunity, and then that opportunity did or did not turn into business, right? And we've tried to accommodate that with different multi-touch attribution models and influence models and things like that. But to my original point, that you just said one thing, right? Is that there, it might help you to have some brand awareness running in the background, right? I've actually noticed a bit more of a trend in that direction, a bit more of a re-acknowledgement that brand matters and ultimately will help grease the skids for your performance marketing, right? For your demand gen campaigns. Which is good, right? I think I've started to see more of that creative thinking come back around, that idea that you have to always be front and center, that you have to be serving up relevant content in order to stay relevant in your buyers' minds, even if that doesn't result in a sale today or next month or in 6 months. And I think there's always going to be pressure to measure everything you do, but I have seen that trend start to cycle back around of, okay, like, we know we have to create demand efficiently. We've got to drive that pipeline efficiently, but like, there's also room for brand building as well. And, I think Instagram is an interesting example because it does both, right? It does both. Ads that are always in your feed, they're cycling through, you're getting exposed to them every day, you're starting to like and engage with their content. And very often, like, they make it super easy to buy from them. So they're generating business at the same time as generating brand, depending on the company, right? Not every medium is that efficient. Not every brand, not every company can work in that way. But I just think it's interesting brand and demand are starting to play on more equal footing these days, at least in my experience.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely along the party lines there. I've been seeing a lot more B2B companies acting like B2C companies, where there is that level of where you're a business to consumer brand, you're a Nike, you're an Apple. You need to have that you need to evoke that emotion in your campaigns. You need to have that loyalty to your brand, and people actually getting excited and feeling something towards a brand. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And I think the B2B companies now, like, we want that. That's like, we've seen what that's like, and we know what it feels like, and we want to do more of that for ourselves.
We've seen the other side. I mean,
Yeah.
but like, isn't it obvious? Like we're marketing to individuals, we're marketing to people. They just happen to work for businesses. They happen to work for companies. But like, when I'm sold to, I want to feel something. I want to be engaged by something. I want to feel good about who I'm buying from. I want to trust them. I want to feel like I have an authentic connection with them, right? And that's how I buy personally too, in my personal life. It doesn't change just because all of a sudden I put on my OpenSignal hat and now I'm a corporate robot, right? That only cares about downloading white papers. Like it's just not, it's not how the world works. But it's been like pulling teeth to get to this point. I feel like, to say, actually, like, yes, we're not selling socks, and therefore doing a huge direct response display campaign is probably not like the tactic for B2B marketers. But like so many of the dynamics are the same because we're just selling to humans at the end of the day.
Yeah, we are. And that was one of those trends that kind of bubbled up, where it's like, you're not selling to a business, you're selling to a human. There's a human behind every interaction that you do. And I think that a lot of the ways that companies now are thinking about brand, if you're a B2B SaaS company, it used to be where you would have this line item in your budget. It was like brand spend, right? And it might be, maybe you were running awareness banners on digital channels, or maybe you were doing some experiential marketing if you were a little bit bigger, but that was kind of limited. I think now companies are thinking about brand in everything that they do, across every tactic, every campaign. There's going to be an element of brand there. And I think that, again, comes back to quality content, knowing your audience. Where can you sit? Where can you make people better at their jobs? Make people superheroes, right? What's it gonna take? What can I do if I roll out this software? Is it gonna help me get a promotion? Is it gonna help me hit my OKRs? Like, it all comes down to that as well. And I think that that's all kind of infused in one. And then as it relates to, you'd mentioned, tracking it. And I think that has always been a challenge, because you were presented with, okay, well, we can look at website visitors, or organic traffic, or time spent on page, or number of form fills, or number of followers on LinkedIn, like, you name it. You can come up with a metric, call it a vanity metric or not. There could be some that have some actual, like, leading indicator function to it. But
Yep.
You're getting tools now where you can try to tie this offline activity and the online activity and the dark social and all that. You can kind of piece it together. And I think that's also allowing companies to feel more comfortable, and marketing teams more comfortable to invest in brand campaigns, so to speak, because they can actually see the value there.
That's right. I mean, I think it is pretty amazing how far measurement has come, in the past 10, 15 years. Right. So I think, I think it's resulted in a world that, yes, maybe there have been periods where it's been painful for marketers, because we haven't been able to measure the full picture and therefore demonstrate the full value of what we do. But we're certainly not all the way there, but it feels like we might be getting to a point where, yeah, we went through that pain, but it helped us think more critically about our actions, like I said before. And now we can actually start to apply what we've learned, right? And how we started to think more analytically. Like, we can apply that mindset to a world where we can see a more holistic view of everything that we do. And I think that's only going to benefit the marketing field moving forward. And I think, the value of everything that we do is just going to become more and more apparent as time goes on.
Speaking of in terms of campaigns, I like to ask this question to guests. What have you seen over your 15-year career was the most successful campaign you've ever run? And it doesn't necessarily need to be the campaign that generated the most revenue or brought in the most leads. Like, what do you feel was the best campaign that you've ever run? And you can tell me why.
It's such a good question. It's a hard question to answer, right? I think the most effective campaigns that I've run usually have a similar characteristic, which is they tend to be built around community and engagement of that community, right? And it's hard to run those campaigns, right? It's really easy to write an ebook and to send out an email or to sponsor an email and send that out into the world and generate leads. I've run some really successful campaigns that way. I've run a lot of webinars, right? In the same sort of way. Let's come up with an interesting topic, see who bites, right? Let's see if they're qualified. The most effective campaigns that I've run are when I've been fortunate enough to work for companies that have communities built into their brand, right? So, for instance, you and I work together at a sales enablement company, right? I found the sales enablement community to actually be incredibly passionate about what they do, right? And they are yearning to learn from each other and from thought leaders in the field about how to do their jobs better and idea share, right? It's a pretty niche function. And I found this in other verticals as well, right? That there are these groups of people who are just looking to learn. They don't care about product necessarily, right? They care about insights and doing their jobs better and learning from people that they trust. So, I worked for one company where we ran these sales enablement workshops, right? And they were monthly. And every month we'd have a different topic. We'd have different speakers. Usually they were our customers. We'd do a little customer panel. And then we would open up the floor to everybody who attended, right? It wasn't a webinar. It was, show up, you're going to be on camera, you're going to be on mic, you're going to listen to a little presentation. And then we're going to do breakout sessions. We're going to share feedback. We're going to share, our main takeaways. In a couple instances, we actually even had follow-up exercises for them to do. And it became more of this community learning experience as opposed to let me, register for something and then I'll get the on-demand link later, right? We didn't record them. So I think that's a good example of, a really high value campaign type that has worked really well for me in a few different instances, because in those instances, you are, as a brand, you're presenting yourself as a resource rather than a tool, right? You're presenting yourself as a leader. You're presenting yourself as a connector of people and ideas. And ultimately, to your point earlier, you're helping people do their jobs better, right? And you're giving people insight that they might be lacking. And it's not necessarily coming from you, it's coming from your community. And, in the instance I just shared and in multiple other instances, all of those types of campaigns have always generated in customers pretty fast, right? Because you've built trust, which is so fundamental to everything that we do. But when you position yourself as an objective thought leader, right, in the space, who again can bring together people looking to achieve a common goal, it builds trust immediately, right, and credibility. And then when they're looking for a solution, which they probably will, you're right there, right? They're not looking to anybody else because they already have a relationship with you because of the community that you built around them. So those are the types of campaigns that I've run that I've found to be most effective, right? It's all about building trust and building community and engaging with the people who you actually want to buy from you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it says it all. I mean, getting you're essentially leveraging that power of community and trying to take a step back. You're there as a resource. You're facilitating this group, and you're kind of letting them do their thing. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we're almost out of time. I want to, end the podcast just getting our viewers maybe something that they don't know about in terms of the hot new podcast. What's on your morning commute these days?
Yeah. Well, as a father of two young kids, I will say that my content intake has been cut more than in half these days. But I think when it comes to business or tech podcasts, I like the classics. It's not new to anybody, but like I love a good "How I Built This" episode, right? Because I love hearing the stories of how companies are built and the people who thought about them, right, and who thought of them, and what their journey was like, and they're so different, right, and often inspiring, sometimes not, but like a great glimpse into how businesses are built, which is something that I'm really interested in and passionate about. Yeah, really, really good. Always very, very current. So they're good. Just to quickly get